Hello again. This is Mrs. Jacobs, and I will be showing you today GoMath Grade 4, Chapter 4, Division, Lesson 4.10, which is really dividing a 3-digit dividend by a 1-digit divisor. And so we will be working with a 3-digit number and dividing by a single digit. An example is we will do 352, which is a 3-digit number, divided by a 1-digit number, let's say 3. So as 4th graders, they need to know up to a 4-digit, which will be taught in lesson 4.11. With that being said, the same strategies and steps are being used in 4.9, 4.10, and 4.11. All right. This is the standard numbers in base 10, standard number 6. And it says that a 4th grader needs to learn how to divide. And we are teaching them here how to divide using regrouping, which is a traditional way of dividing. Some of us know it as long division. So let's get started. So first we're just looking at the steps that I will be using throughout my videos on division is divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and usually we say repeat because the reason why we're calling it long division is the process or the steps are repeated numerous times and it could take a little bit of time. So we're using D for divide, M for multiply, S for subtract, and BD I use for bring down, okay? And that is the steps I will be using throughout this video. So to get a clearer picture, all right, when we set up division, we use this term with the kids about a house, and they know that as preparing themselves for long division. For an example, what we're talking about, if I was going to do 463 divided by 7, I would say that there's a number inside the house and outside the house when we're setting it up. So the dividend goes inside. The divisor goes on the outside, all right? So when we're doing our dividing step, the number inside the house with the number of the outside of the house, okay? We know that is how many times does 7 go into 4 without going over? Okay, that's another way to think about it. And a lot of children should ask themselves that question. Okay, so we're on the D part. That's what I'll be using. How many times does this number go into this number without going over? So then multiplying, all right, is the next step that we'll be doing. Then we'll be doing subtracting. Then we're going to make sure that our answer in our subtraction is correct before we actually bring down. And then we're going to repeat all the steps as many times as needed. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so if I want to do 835 divided by 5, I'm going to set it up. Okay, 5 into 835. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write to the side, divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. And I'm going to use this as a checklist to keep me on track because remember, in long division, we might need to repeat the process or some of us get distracted and lose track of what step we're on. So if we're putting checks as a checklist, it keeps us on track. So the first part is division. And in the division part, we are dividing by 5. So it's really important that you know your multiples, or skip counting, by 5. So I'm going to ask myself, how many times does 5 go into 8? And we're using the first digit inside the house. So how many times does 5 go into 8 without going over? What that means is that when I skip count by 5, I can't go past 8. So I'm going to do my skip counting. 5, 10. But 10 already passes 8. So it doesn't go in 2 times. It goes in once. So 5 goes into 8 once. When you divide, your quotient is up high. So when you divide, you have to make sure that you're putting your division answer on top of the house, okay? Some children don't know where to place it, so it's very important on the division, your answers are always going up high, okay? So that's telling me that 5 goes into 8 one time without going over. So that takes care of my division. I give myself a check. Now the multiplication, okay, is you are multiplying 1 times 5, and I'm just drawing arrows on my first example just so that you know where to put it. So 1 times 5, and I'm doing it in that order, because if you start at the top and work around, you're going to do 1 times 5 is 5, and you're going to place it right underneath. So when you multiply, it goes down below, underneath. So 1 times 5 is 5. I'm done with that, my multiplication step. Now it says subtract, okay? And when I'm subtracting 8 take away 5. Now, some people say, why did you put the 5 under the 8? The reason why I put the 5 under the 8 when I multiplied is because the question I asked myself before is how many times does 5 go into 8, not into 835. So since I asked myself how many times 5 is going into 8, I am only working with the number 8 right now. So 1 times 5 is 5. I put it under the 8. Because remember, we're working with 1 digit here. So now I'm ready for my subtraction. It's 8 take away 5 is 3. Give myself a check. Now, bring down. So I go in my house and I look at the next digit that's available that hasn't been used. And it's the next one. So the next digit is the digit 3. You can only take and bring down one number. So I'm only going to bring down the 3. Okay. Now that I brought down, I know that my answer can't be 1 remainder 33, right? So I asked myself, oh, what are the steps are left? I did them all. And I'm going to say repeat. So you have to repeat the steps going back to step 1, which is division. However, inside your house, your numbers have been changing. If you look as we're going down, the numbers are changing. So the number that's in my house right now is 33. So when I'm doing my division part, okay, which I'll change the color of the pen so that you could see more clearly, is when I'm starting my division, I'm asking myself, how many times does 5 go into 33 without going over? And 5 goes into 33. I do 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. And I say, uh-oh, 35. I passed 33. So it's not 7 times. 5 goes into 33 6 times without going over. So when I divide, my answer goes high. And I give myself a check. Now I multiply. Multiply, I go 6 times 5 is, and that goes below. So 6 times 5 is 30. Give myself a check. Now I subtract. Make sure my subtraction is correct. Give myself a check. And then I say, can I bring down? Well, there's a 5 here to bring down. So I'm going to bring it down. Give myself a check. Now, some of you are saying, all right, this is my answer. 16 remains at 35. And this can't be accurate for 2 reasons. First, your remainder cannot be equal to or greater than your divisor. So your divisor is 5, right? Your remainder is 35. It can't be because 35 is way higher than 5. So that's the first reason that can't work out. Second reason I know I'm not done is because this here still doesn't have a digit above it. So the only way to get a digit there is to continue the steps all over again, which I will do in another color. Okay. So now when I'm up to my division, I have a new number in my house again. And my number in my house is 35. Okay. So now when I'm doing my division, I'm asking myself, how many times does 5 go into 35 without going over? So I skip count by 5, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. And that's great. You're allowed to land on it or be equal to it, but you can't pass it. So 5 goes into 35 exactly 7 times. So when I divide, I go high, up high. There we go. And now I'm up to multiplication. So I'm going to do 7 times 5 is 35. Okay. Now I subtract. This is a whole bunch of zeros, right? And then give myself a check and it says bring down. Well, there's no numbers inside the house, or if I want to use math vocabulary, there's no more digits in my dividend to bring down. So my remainder is 0. However, if your remainder is 0, you don't need to write R0. Okay? So this would be my quotient. So 835 divided by 5 equals 167. Okay? And I'm going to check work by using multiplication. How do we do that? You take your quotient, which is 167, you times it by 5, your divisor, and that should give you this number inside your house. Okay? So 167 times 5 should be 835. So I'm going to use my calculator here to figure that out. So 160 times 5. Let's fix that. 167 times 5. There we go. So is 835. I put it in the calculator wrong on purpose. You need to make sure that when you're entering or checking with a calculator or checking on your paper that you are using the correct numbers. It's so important. Okay. All right. So let's go try another one. So let's do 245 divided by 7. So setting it up. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Okay. All right. So in this case, all right, we're still doing the same thing, but something is a little bit different here. When I know I'm dividing by 7, but however, I know that 7 doesn't go into 2 because when I do my multiples of 7, I go 7, and then I already passed 2. So 7 does not go into 2. It automatically passes it. So that's why my answer is 0. So that is division. If you get an answer of 0, that's fine. That when you divide in the real world and you get a 0, you put it up there. So 7 goes into 2 0 times, and then I'm going to do 0 times 7 is 0. Subtract. Bring down. Start over and repeat. How many times does 7 go into 24 without going over? 7, 14, 21, 28. Oops, 28 is too much. So that's 3 times. 7 goes into 24 3 times. Multiply. 3 times 7 is 21. Now remember, when you multiply, you go down low. Subtract. Bring down. Repeat. How many times does 7 go into 35 without going over? 7, 14, 21, 28, 35. Exactly 5 times. So divide goes up on top. Multiply goes down low. 5 times 7 is 35. I multiply. Subtract. Oops, sorry, that looked like a 6. These are zeros. Bring down. There's nothing else in my house to bring down. So my answer, my quotient is 35. I check it using multiplication by doing 35 times 7 should be 245. And that's what we get, 245. All right, so here I'm just going to do a number generator so I can get a number. 2, so 3. So 234 divided by, no, we don't want 0, because anything divided by 0 is 0. Okay, so 234 divided by 6. So that's what I'm going to show you. Okay, divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. I like to write this on my paper all the time until I really get used to it. So 6, how many times does 6 go into 2? It doesn't. 0 times. 0 times 6 is 0. Subtract. Bring down. Repeat. How many times does 6 go into 23 without going over? 6, 12, 18, 24. Oop. If I did 4 times, that would be too much. So 3 times. 3 times 6 is 18. Subtract. If I have 3, I can't take 8 away. Okay, I subtract it. Bring down. Okay, this 4 is available. Okay. Now, remainder of 54 is not going to work, especially when my divisor is only 6. So I'm going to do repeat the process all over again. And I'm going to say how many times is 6? Go into 54. So 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, 54. Exactly. So it's 9 times. 9 times 6 is 54. Subtract. Okay, and that's it. It actually works out evenly. So 234, this is my division equation. 234 divided by 6 equals 39. Okay, and I check it. I know I have a calculator here, but on your test, you won't have a calculator. You would have to do 39 times 6, and hopefully it will give you your dividend of 234. If it doesn't, then we made an error in our division or in our subtraction or in our multiplication. One of these steps is not accurate. So 9 times 6 is 54. The 4, we group the 5. 6 times 3 is 18. 18 plus 5 is 23. So it does equal, so 39 then is an accurate quotient. Okay, and I'll just check it on the calculator. 39 times 6 equals. Okay. All right, so this just gives you the steps if you need to read this. I have written down the steps if you want to look at this example and follow it step by step so that you can see, okay? And you can refer to this while you're doing some practice, okay? And just to show you how we apply this to problem solving, it says Mrs. Jacobs received 176 math test prep books. If 8 books fit on a shelf, how many shelves are needed to fit all 176 math test prep books? So first, I know this is division because I have a total, which is 176. And I'm taking those books and I am dividing them onto shelves. And only 8 fit on a shelf. So I need to know how many shelves I need to actually fit all these 176 books. So it's like I'm taking the 176 and I'm dividing them up right onto the shelves. So I am going to be doing 176 divided by 8 equals, and this quotient will tell me how many shelves are needed to hold all 176 books. So I'll be using long division. All right. 8 does not go into 1, it goes in 0 times. 0 times 8 is 0. Subtract. Bring down. Start over. How many times does 8 go into 17 without going over? 8, 16, 24. Ooh, 24 passed, so it's twice. 2 times 8 is 16. Subtract. Bring down. Divide again. How many times does 8 go into 16? Oh, that's 2 times. 2 times 8 is 16. Okay, so I divided, I multiplied, I subtract, and that's it. So, I would need 20, right? Your answer's up here. This is the quotient. The answer. Okay. So the answer is 22. So I would need 22 shelves to hold all those 176 books. And that's it. So I hope this video has helped you. And if this is a 4-digit, which you can do, it's just you're going to repeat all those steps more times over and over, and you'll have an extra number to bring down in your house. All right, so be confident and practice on a daily basis, and you will be a master at division. Thank you for joining me today.